Welcome back to the Clear to Close podcast. Please remember to like, subscribe, and comment. Today on the podcast, we're thrilled to have Kellie Barter with us. Kellie transitioned from a background in IT into real estate back in 2001. She quickly found success helping buyers and sellers, and that led to a management role where she grew multiple offices over the years. She is the current president of Weichert Realtors, 1790, and she's the current president of the Southern Ohio Association of Realtors. We're thrilled to have her on the podcast today. Welcome, Kellie.
Thank you.
Kellie, can you just start off by telling the listeners a little bit about yourself and your background and the work that you do?
Absolutely. So I've lived in Cincinnati my whole life. I'm married to my husband, Matt, for almost 29 years. We have 2 kids. My daughter and son-in-law, my daughter Morgan and my son-in-law Akshay live in Seattle. And then my son Tyler lives here in Cincinnati. I've been licensed for 23 years in Ohio. I got my broker's license in 2018 in Ohio, and then in 2020 got my Kentucky broker's license. So I do work on both sides of the river. We have offices in both. I worked for a large broker, as you said, for many years, managing, and then I opened Weichert in 2020.
Perfect timing.
Literally signed my lease the day before they shut us down for COVID. So my husband's comment was, well, it can't get any worse. So
Only up from here, right?
Yeah, right. So we've grown in 4 years. We've grown from 13 agents in one office to we have 41 agents and 3 offices covering 2 states. Wow. So we've done a lot in 4 years, and I'm pretty proud of how our team has worked together.
Yeah,
Awesome.
that is awesome.
Hey, I do have a question because
Yeah.
I think that there's just not a lot of knowledge on this. Can you generally explain the difference between a broker and an agent?
Yes. So a broker has to take a separate test and classes. The requirements in Ohio just changed a little bit. It used to be that you actually had to have a certain amount of college credit. They did just take that requirement away, but you do have to take some college courses and then sit for the classes and take your test to get a broker's license. An agent cannot be an agent without having a sponsorship from a broker. Okay. So the broker is the one who is ultimately responsible. So if my agent gets in trouble, I also can be in trouble. So your broker is the one who's probably going to be staying up on the everyday legal regulatory stuff
changes,
more than doing the actual showing of houses and stuff like that.
Sure, and then that kind of flows down to your agents through education.
Correct.
Yeah.
So my job is more to run the office, keep up on all of that stuff, and then train the agents on what's going on.
Sure.
Got it. So your relationship with us at TechneTitle started about 15 years ago.
Yeah.
How did that start?
So a lot of my agents were using you guys, so that's the reason I started out knowing you more from the manager side of just, hey, yeah, you guys are coming across our desk for on HUDs at that point and stuff, and seeing you guys in the offices when we were doing closings. But for the most part, that's how it started, and then it kind of evolved into, hey, I need a closing, so, well, I've got one, I'll just see what they're like, and started using you guys. And now I think in all of our transactions that we've done recently, I think there's only been one, and it was because it was new construction that personally you guys haven't done for us.
Got it.
And then also I think 90% of my clients when I have a sale also are using you guys.
And so I have a 2-part follow-up question to that. So the very first out-of-office closing I ever did was for you. And I got scolded for not bringing TechneTitle pens to the closing.
Well, that is a real problem.
First question, why are TechneTitle pens the best? And second, why can't realtors afford their own pens?
Realtors can afford their own pens.
Oh, okay.
But we always need blue. Some companies don't bring blue. And I don't know what it is. You guys have the fine points. They're the best pens.
Okay.
I literally went digging for one the other day to handwrite invitations for something because I knew that it was the best pen that I could do for that.
There we go. I received that feedback. I always have plenty of pens now, but
and
Kellie gave me that direct feedback right away. I appreciate that.
I keep a full bag in my car at all times just in case.
We have them throughout the office.
Well, thank you for clearing that up. That was a big question I had. Switching gears a little bit, so the NAR settlement.
Yeah.
Do you see this changing the industry, or?
Well, it has changed this week. Most of the MLSs are either making their changes this week or so the first week of August or the second week of August. Cincinnati MLS took compensation out at midnight on the 6th, so technically the 7th. Dayton is taking it out on the 8th, so I guess that's today. And then Northern Kentucky takes it out on the 14th. It has to be out by the 15th. So yes, it is going to change how we do business, because now we have to get with the other broker and find our agent and find out what their compensation, if there's compensation being offered, what it is and how it looks like. Most companies have started already that you have to have a buyer broker representation agreement signed, saying that the buyer will pay whatever the compensation is up front. And but it empowers us to still work with the seller and the other broker to get it paid through them. But if they're not going to offer that, then it does fall back on the buyer.
So they'll sign an agreement. So if you're looking to purchase a house, you would sign an agreement saying, I'm willing to pay up to X amount, either dollar or percentage.
Correct.
And if that isn't part of what the sellers are willing to do, you potentially would need to bring that to the table.
Correct. So if the seller's willing to pay a portion of it, then you only have to bring part of it. If the seller's not willing to pay any of it, then you're responsible for paying that fee and bringing that to the table.
Have you had conversations with people? Like, do you foresee people having difficulty bringing that compensation to the table as a buyer?
Then they shouldn't be signing a contract that's legal and binding,
Sure.
which is what they're signing with us.
Right.
But yes, I do see that as being something that's going to come up. There's a possibility that they're going to sign something and then get to the closing table and go, just kidding, we're going to send over our buyer agreement to the title company, and the title company is going to go, they can't wire that money. So I think there's going to have to be a lot of conversations. CETO has always been a thing. Come into my office before I take you to see a house. And agents have gotten away from it. We used to put people in our cars and we're able to have conversations while we're driving from house to house to house. Now it's can you meet me at this front door, open the door and let me in kind of thing. It's going to have to come back to those buyers consultations, because you need to know, one, do they have the funds for their down payment and to pay this if we cannot get it negotiated at the time. They cannot roll it into a loan. They cannot pay it through that loan. I do know there's a few lenders looking at personal loans that they could use which is kind
It'll
of
affect ability to repay.
Apparently not.
Oh, okay, sure.
Okay.
But then my question is, my question to that lender was, okay, does that money get wired directly to the brokerage? Because if it goes to them and they don't pay us, I'm still having to chase them down to get paid. So yes, is it going to change? Are we sure how this is going to all roll out? No, we're just at the beginning. It's going to change on a daily basis, I think, honestly.
Yeah. As people, it will regulate eventually,
It will,
you would think.
but
right?
I think
It's how
over
to
the
get
next 3 to 12 months,
Yeah.
we joke all the time, all of these documents. I'm on the forms committee for Cincinnati and for Northern Kentucky, and we joke all the time that these are live documents and they could be changed by the hour some days, But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how things play out and how it works, but it's an ever-evolving issue.
What, just for people's background, like the NAR settlement, what was the goal of the, I guess, initial
The grand scheme of
So
the suit.
the lawsuit came from a seller who said, and this is my understanding, I've read it several times, not an attorney, but my interpretation of what it is they decided that they were not happy at the fact that they had paid the buyer's agent to negotiate against them, and that they did not truly understand that that's what they were doing. So they decided, after they had closed on their house, so they had accepted the contract, they closed on their house, that they were going to sue anybody and everybody, basically, to say that this is not right. This is not how this should be done. It went against some brokerages. It went against NAR. Some of the brokerages settled ahead of time. And then NAR was slapped with this 400 and some odd billion.
Monopoly money
Right.
numbers.
Yeah. Which could have gone up to over $500 billion, like ridiculous. In order for them to be able to appeal it, they had to put up that bond. It would have bankrupted NAR.
Yeah.
So NAR decided to settle and make it kind of just, okay, we'll settle, we'll change how we do business. Keep in mind, the settlement still has not been finally approved. That's not till November. So that's also part of the reason that, yes, we have to put things into effect by August 17th for that settlement, but it still could change.
Yeah.
The judge could come back and say, no, we want this,
Throw the
this,
whole
and
thing
this
out.
now.
Yeah.
So that's part of the reason it is. And then Ohio decided to put House Bill 466 on the books, which was signed at the end of July at the Ohio State Fair by the governor, that now says it's license law that we have to use buyer agreements. So that will go into effect. It said 90 days from the day he signed it. So I think it was like sometime the end of October and something in the 20s of October that now will be license law. So if agents don't do it, they could lose their license.
Okay.
So we've got a lot of different things moving at once.
Which is, it's good practice to do that, right? Just to have
It
everyone
is.
apprised of what they're doing. What I question is potentially the unintended side effect of this is, I mean, Google, average closing costs, right now.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to get like 400 million results probably on
Correct.
Google, but you're going to get a ton of results that say the average closing costs in a purchase is approximately whatever percent of this.
Mm-hmm.
All of those are now outdated,
Correct.
right? Because they don't factor in the factor that you might, as a buyer, be paying your agent.
Correct.
Now, historically, I mean, you
were
can also counter
always
that.
paying your agent. It was just
You were
It was
in
built
as
into
part
the
of the
sales
price.
price.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, yes, if you're not offering compensation to the buyer's agent, you may lower your list price. And then it's going to look attractive to someone. Let's say they're on that $300,000 line.
Right.
And they can get approved for $300,000. And it's now a $290 whatever thousand property. That comes up in their search now as
but
a
they
property.
have to factor that in.
But then when they turn around and look at real numbers, they're going to come out with
And I
more than
really
that
don't
figure.
think sellers are going to lower their price.
No,
I
No,
think
I
because
don't think so either.
the
It's-
comps are the comps.
Yeah.
They're looking at the comps. That's what an appraiser is going to look at as well. And the comps say that your house is worth this. They're not taking into consideration who paid compensation, who didn't pay compensation, who paid closing
that be?
cost, or who didn't.
Will that be in the MLS list? Because I never see
Compensation?
the sales reports in the MLS.
We
There's-
cannot put any compensation at all in the MLS anymore.
So if this happens, so the sellers can say we're not paying anything for the buyer's agent.
Correct.
At
Which
what-
they've
at-
always been able to say. It has never been fixed by law.
Sure, it's common practice,
Correct.
right? At what point now do you find that out? Like, is that as you are in negotiations, like once you're under contract?
Give me a week, Josh, and I'll tell you.
Okay, great.
I mean, it could be, we can put it on signs out front. We
Okay.
can put it on social media. We can have a sheet inside the house that tells you. You can do a phone call, a text, an email to the agent, and they can tell you.
Tell you, got it. Okay, you just can't put it on the MLS.
You just cannot put it on the MLS or anything that is fed by the MLS.
I mean, kind of to both your points, I don't know how much this is actually going to change anything. I don't think people are sitting on massive cash reserves that are looking to buy homes. Like you said, traditionally, you were paying your agent by baking it into the sale price and then mortgaging that over 15 or 30 years.
Right.
So I don't think people have the excess funds like to put down a down payment and pay the agent cash just straight up front as well.
and
So
some do, some don't.
Yeah.
And I mean, and that's part of the reason in our buyer broker agreement, it says that you empower us to try to get it from the seller. Most purchase contracts have been changed now, and we never were allowed to negotiate commission inside of our purchase contract. Now we can.
okay.
So now it's a line item inside the purchase contract that says the seller will pay X amount of commission. Now it becomes a negotiable item while you're negotiating the contract if you don't have something signed broker to broker to start with.
Got it.
Yeah,
Makes
and
sense.
then for us as the title company, it's going to be interesting too. Who's paying what commissions, right? Because historically, it's always just it's been on the seller side, except for maybe if they do those additional commissions that some
Right.
of the brokerages do, like a $95 fee or
Right.
whatever it is. It's always just been on that side, and so now, if an agent has been in the business a long time and is just used to saying the commission is X, and they don't put on what side, and they're not reachable quickly, and we may end up having a delayed closing or wrong documents at the closing that says, oh, well, this should be on this side. Okay, well, buyer, I need you to go wire us another
money.
X thousand dollars. Right?
Yeah.
On a cash closing, on a lender deal, it'd be a slightly different, but it'd still be kind of the same thing.
Well, they're still going to have to wire the money because they're not. So when you were talking about closing costs cannot be that compensation. It can only be the prepaids, discount points, and actual closing costs for the transaction. So they can't roll it into closing costs.
Interesting.
So lots of changes coming. Obviously, once again, this points back to working with professionals that are staying up to date on all these changes in the industry. And this is a massive change that we really haven't seen in a long time. So having that expertise is very important.
And there was always the beginning of the tipping point, right? The a la carte services.
Absolutely.
Right? You know, just, hey, pay X $100 and put it on the MLS. That's all I need you to do as a seller, right? Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Do your own marketing, do your own showings, do your own all this, right? And then there was middle grounds, I understand, that you could do, they would do some of the things, but not all the things. And then there was full service brokerage, right? Which is, I'm in it with you.
And you still have that.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of how it's now on the paperwork and and who's paying it.
Yeah. Very interesting. Switching gears back to kind of the client perspective a little bit. What are some of those common things that you think people should know as they enter the home buying process, and how do you make them feel supported as you take somebody through the journey, especially first-time home buyers?
So I think the big thing is hiring somebody that you trust. Talk to several agents. Don't just, talk to people and see who they've used. Get those referrals. You need someone who is up on the industry standards. It's not how much have they sold or anything like that. It's somebody who knows the area, who knows the contracts, who knows the support, and then also has a good team behind them. Who they use for a lender. If you don't have a lender is a huge thing. Do you have a lender that actually can tell you the different programs and give you different options? And then a title company that's going to be able to, be creative. Sometimes you need remote closings.
Yep.
Sometimes you need a closing in a hospital room while a baby's about ready to be born. I mean,
closed in a city dump one time.
That was a new one. I haven't heard that one. So you've got to have a team. It's not one person. It's a team of people who are going to help you get to that closing table. And you have to understand that we do this for a living. We have inspectors. We have radon people. We have all of those resources to help you. It doesn't mean you have to use them, but we can help you be the source of the source. And that's honestly what an agent is a lot, is that source of the source. We don't just open the door or fill in blanks on a contract.
I don't know. Those lock boxes can be tricky.
They are tricky.
I've struggled with those.
But we don't just do that. We help you keep the whole transaction together and make sure that it's all working the way it needs to work. There's a lot of behind the scenes that our clients don't even know about.
Final question. So what piece of advice would you give somebody who's looking, maybe a couple months out and they're looking to get into the market to purchase a home? What advice would you give to them?
Do it. Just jump in, find that person that's going to help you. Be a little patient with us because things are changing by the hour. But we're here to help. Nothing has really changed with the level of service you're going to get. It's about the disclosures and how we have to now negotiate for you. But you need an agent to help you. We're here to help. We're not, we have no ulterior motives. We want to get people into the house. Honestly, most of my agents, they get their high, if you want to say, from sitting at closing because not because they got the check, but because somebody just got keys to a house that maybe never thought they would buy a house or never dreamed that they would have this house, or that's where we get our excitement and our joy, is watching somebody who didn't think this was possible actually get those keys.
Yeah, that's where I get the most enjoyment out of this job, is getting to that closing table. Somebody, exactly like you said, first-time home buyer, and they're excited, and we're bringing it all together at the end. Same on the title.
I had a client who bought a $50,000 house. My father-in-law looked at me and said, "Why are you spending so much time with these people?" And I was like, "Well, these people need a house."
Yeah.
It was a $50,000 house. I showed him 2 houses. It's not like I really spent that much time with them because there wasn't a lot. The day of closing, I know they were scraping every penny They bought me flowers
Oh.
because of how much they appreciate it and never thought they would have a house. That's why we do what we do.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, you got to get paid. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to help anyone.
Absolutely.
But if
I
you're
mean, it is our
only in it
job.
for the money,
Yeah.
it's probably not a good hourly rate, right? I know for our business, it's
Right.
not a great hourly rate. Well, we get paid for the amount of work that we do. So that's not why
Correct.
we do it. And it's the same with realtors, and it's the same with lenders, at least the good ones.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
The ones that I remember, I can't tell you the names of the people in multi-million-dollar commercial transactions. I
Right.
can't tell you
It's a
many
business
stories on
transaction.
those. What I can tell you is the $47,000 transaction that I did that the people were crying
Yeah.
because they were the first person, not in their direct line, but in their entire family lineage to own real estate,
It's awesome.
Yeah.
right?
I mean, at the end of the day, real estate is personal, right? It's local. You live here, and these are ultimately our neighbors, and this is why we do what we do,
Yeah,
and it's really cool to see when it all comes
Absolutely.
together.
If you start
So,
with that why, it does make it easier to
Yeah.
to dig in. And I was up at 2:00 the other morning trying to work through a problem, and I was like, if all I cared about was the money on this, I would not
be
have been
working.
up at 2 a.m.
Right.
working on it. It just wouldn't have. I could have worked on it the next day, and you guys can push off your stuff.
Right.
But they had a rate lock coming up. They have a closing date coming up. We got to make sure it gets taken care of.
absolutely. Well, thank you, Kelly. That was
Thank you.
great discussion. I've learned a lot, as I have with all our guests. So thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right. Thank you for watching the Clear to Close podcast. Please remember to like, subscribe, and comment. Thanks. That concludes part 1 of our discussion with Kelly. Stay tuned for part 2 in a future episode.
All information provided in this publication is for informational and educational purposes only, and in no way is any of this content contained herein to be construed as financial, investment, or legal advice or instruction. TechneTitle Agency, Inc. and the guests appearing on this podcast do not guarantee the quality, accuracy, completeness, or timelines of the information in this publication. While efforts are made to verify the information provided, the information should not be assumed to be error-free. Some information in this publication may have been provided by third parties and has not necessarily been verified by TechneTitle Agency, Inc. TechneTitle Agency, Inc., its affiliates, and subsidiaries do not assume any liability for the information contained herein, be it direct, indirect, consequential, special, or exemplary, or other damages whatsoever, however caused, arising out of or in connection with the use of this publication or in reliance on the information, including any personal or pecuniary loss, whether the action is contract, tort, including negligence, or other tortious action.